Hi, welcome to Driven to Repair, podcast where we talk to industry leaders in the automotive sector. I am John Webb, your host, managing partner, 10 Point Complete, and today we have a very special guest. It is Aaron Schulenburg, Executive Director of SCRS. Aaron, welcome to the program.
No, thanks so much for having me, John. We've been talking about this for a long time. I'm glad we got a chance to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's start with the basics, maybe. What is the overall vision and mission of SCRS?
So really, our role is to help educate, inform, and represent collision repair professionals. And that's done through a variety of different ways. As you know, SCRS is a national association. We represent the small businesses in our industry across the United States. And we try to develop programs and resources that help bring that education, bring access to the information that can help their businesses develop, and really be that voice of advocacy for businesses who oftentimes don't feel like they have a place or a voice around issues that matter for them, their business, their employees, and their customers.
Yeah, I think that that's an excellent summary of the vision and mission. And going back to a little bit of history, maybe, I know the industry recently lost one of the founders or forefathers of SCRS, John Loftus. I had the privilege of knowing and meeting John. It's been many years since we talked, actually. And I think that, correct me if I'm wrong here, go through a little bit of the history. We had Dan Risley in there a while, and you've been there for a number of years. So maybe take us through a little bit of the history. I think it's been a very stable organization and growing organization.
It has been. So you're correct. John Loftus was there from the start when SCRS was formed in 1982. I hold, just like everybody who knew John, I hold him in such high regard. I think John had this amazing way of empowering people. He had this amazing way making people feel like they could use their voice and have it matter. I still hear stories today about how John would whisper in someone's ear and go, "You should go get to the microphone. You should go share this perspective."
Mm-hmm.
And it really, like, it's a special trait to be able to empower people in that way. John was executive director, again, from 1982 for about 18 years. He left an amazing legacy that I think all of us try to live up to and honor. And yeah, Dan was after John and prior to me. I was really fortunate. I came into SCRS at a volunteer level. All the collision centers that I worked for were members of SCRS, so I was really exposed to it from a membership perspective. I had left writing repair plans in collision repair facilities to go help launch the Database Enhancement Gateway in around 2007, 2008. And then when this position opened up, it just felt like a great opportunity to be able to serve more businesses. And I've been very fortunate to be in this role a little over 17 years now. Yeah, it's neat to have been able to be a part of such a large part of the history of the organization and watch. We've got amazing members on our board who've done a lot to volunteer their time and their energy and their own personal visions for where they want to see the industry go to help develop these programs and provide that stability that you mentioned and the structure and the resources back
Right.
to their peers.
Well, that's a good segue into maybe some of the accomplishments over the years that SCRS has made of benefit to the industry, and maybe getting into some of the member benefits, looking on a little bit from the outside, but also being a part of the industry. Obviously, I've seen the organization grow, and maybe talk about some of the accomplishments and member benefits that are offered currently.
Sure, happy to. Well, look, I think I mentioned the DEG. I chalk that up as a huge accomplishment and attribute that was born out of the associations and those efforts. I talked about the board members and their passion. The DEG was a development of that as well, where you had somebody like March Taylor, who served around the SCRS table, doing all this volunteer work to help address challenges people were having with the databases, the estimating systems, questions that existed. And the DEG kind of took that volunteer work that March did and formalized it into a standing free resource that was funded by member dollars through the associations. We've now got Danny Gridenberg, who just does such an amazing job advocating for the estimating system end users on behalf of the industry today, and has been doing that for a long time. And then over the years, I think we've tried to find different ways to address some of those issues. So you have the DEG that addresses questions and potential errors or omissions in the estimating systems, and you kind of fast forward that to other programs that we've worked to develop, like the blueprint optimization tool that we work on with OEC, that's really designed to help repair planners capture and identify potentially overlooked operations. Different than an error may exist. This is what did I maybe leave off that we're performing, or what did I not capture that we know we need to do as we're following the OEM repair procedures. We've also worked along the way to develop other programs. Things like Repairer Driven News is our news website. Again, it's free to the industry because we reinvest those member dollars, both from our collision centers as well as from companies like yours, help provide those resources to the industry. And that was really designed to take a very journalistic approach to telling the story of the industry and putting information that matters to businesses at their fingertips so that they can understand it and utilize it and share it within the industry. Things like that stemmed from other work that we did. 2010, we launched Repair Driven Education at the SEMA Show. I think it's a platform that we're all very proud of, how the industry has evolved there at the show and how that type of education program really pulls together, I think, some of unique cross-section of thought leaders and of educators and of technical experts and specialists, and puts them in front of the collision repair industry in a very comprehensive platform that gives really everybody something to choose from. And then we've built other member-specific programs that aren't just available to the industry, but are available for anybody in the industry to certainly look and take advantage of. And those are resources that we've designed to help the people within our businesses that are working on these vehicles. Mm-hmm. So programs like industry-leading healthcare programs and 401k programs that are designed to, how can we make people's lives better, right? Like, how do we use the size and scope, the association, the thousands of members we have across the United States, the tens of thousands of employees that exist within those businesses, and how do we use that scale to really positively impact everybody who's a part of the association? And I feel really, I feel really fortunate to be a part of those programs. I feel very grateful that we're able to leverage the association in that way, because I've seen a lot of positive impact. I can't tell you how many shop owners have come to us, and it gives me goosebumps to hear. But you have shop owners who go, I've offered healthcare for 30 years in my business. I've never had anybody say thank you. And in the last year, I've had 3 different team members in my office crying because positively really changed the outcome of their year and maybe of their life, and they felt important and valued because of it. That kind of stuff hits home for all of us around our table, and certainly it feels good to be a part of getting creative and figuring out how we can make the association work for the industry.
Well, those are tremendous examples and accomplishments, and I think it's a testament to your, service attitude and the board, and I think some of the benefits that you got into there get into some of the challenges in the industry as well, right? And I know you recently did a piece with Jason Stahl in Body Shop Business that got into some of the details of the challenges, and I would recommend that everyone watch that. You went over pretty thoroughly things like the challenges with technical specs versus reimbursement models, insurer cost control, ADAS, AI, the slowing down of claims. So I don't know that, we need to get into the details, because, again, I would recommend that people go ahead and source that and watch that. It's very informative. But if you think about that kind of at a higher level, and then try to go from there to what are some of the opportunities, and even looking, I don't know if SCRS has a 5-year plan or not, but, kind of what do you see for the future of the industry and more some of the opportunities emerging. It is a long process. We've both been in the industry a long time, so it's not going to emerge tomorrow probably. But you kind of understand what I'm saying here is, if you can encapsulate all those things you talked about with Jason and then go, okay, well, kind of what's next, or what are the opportunities that we're looking at here?
Yeah. I think what Jason and I talked about and focused on were the biggest challenges facing the industry today, and that's not always the most upbeat conversation to have when you talk about the pressure points, but there's a lot of them. Like I think the reality is businesses operating in the collision repair space today are under a significant amount of pressure, and I think that's always been true, but I think we're at historic levels of pressure. I don't necessarily see the valve that's going to turn that's going to reduce that. And so I think part of the association's value to the industry is giving people who are all experiencing this very similar challenge in their business a community of others who are facing it to kind of relate to understand, to look at, how to successfully overcome some of those challenges. I think there's so many businesses who are told that they are alone, they're the only ones,
Right.
they're the one and only who's pushing back or whatever else. I think being a part of a community to understand that you are not alone is psychologically very important for business owners, not just in our space, in every space, right? But I think that sense of community and camaraderie are one of the things that I see in successful businesses. They've surrounded themselves with other people that look similar, may think differently, but are all working towards the same end goal. I think it's also the way that we take some of those pressures and we try to find ways to express them in manners that aren't always easy for an independent or individual business to do. So you can take, like, an example, the blend study that we released just a couple of years ago, and the conversations that we had around that all was born out of industry issues that our members were experiencing and challenges that they were facing and struggles that they were having in communicating the way in which the discount on blend was negatively impacting their business, and finding a way to scientifically measure that, research it, report on it, deliver it to the industry, and produce it in a white paper, in a product that businesses could now use to better inform their teams internally about how to maybe have those conversations and to better have those conversations externally. And I think that's resulted in a lot of positive change around those issues. You're right that a lot of the work that we do doesn't materialize overnight in a solution. Sometimes it's years of effort, years of conversation that will eventually translate into some form of change or a positive outcome. And I think that's where I look at the people around our board table with such admiration, because they have a lot of fortitude for how do we continue to kind of work on this until we find some level of resolve. And that's not always something that comes quickly or easy. There's not a lot of immediate gratification in that work. But you see these changes that occur over a period of time, and you can look back and go, okay, that stemmed from the conversations that we had, whether that was at a collision industry conference, whether that was in a meeting at a shop where we used that shop to demonstrate. And I think at the upcoming CIC in April, I'm aware you're going to learn about some changes that are taking place in some of the estimating systems that I believe are ultimately the result of long-term conversations that we've had on these issues. And I'm excited for that to get shared with the industry. So I think it's important to be in those rooms. It's important to be at those events. It's where our organizations like ours take that input that we get and then bring it to some level of conclusion. And I think from a long-term standpoint, John, like that's the goal of the association. How do we continue to like leverage our members' voices in a way that positively impacts the industry and our consumer at a very meaningful level? I think you're starting to see some of that work materialize in the conversations we're having at a federal level. Our members have opportunities to really share their voice through op-eds and through some of these other opportunities to help maybe shape some of the legislative language or protect against legislative language that is going to negatively impact our customers and our businesses. And I think you'll see a lot of evolution in that area as well.
Yeah, I think those are great examples. And you mentioned CIC, and I think those of us that have been present at a lot of these meetings, and you hear things like, well, nothing ever happens. And you go back to CIC and back to the encryption, and things do get accomplished. It is slower. And I think the model being what it is with, maybe reducing a little bit, but, somewhere around 80% of collision repairs getting some type of a insurance claim or auto physical damage. And those companies are largely financial institutions, and repairs are for-profit businesses. And that model, both of them are for-profit. So that keeps things very interesting, right? It just at a very basic level. I mean, there's many different factors that go into why companies are successful or profitable, but certainly the more that claims organizations pay out, the less they have in their financial institution, and the more that repair facilities don't charge for whatever reason, whether they're not getting reimbursed or OEM procedures or whatever the situation may be, the less they have in their bank. So that keeps things very interesting. There's no doubt about it. But I think for the leaders of the industry to be able to show up at these events is tremendously important. Change does take is slower than we would like. But you mentioned April meetings. I've been fortunate to sit in on a number of SCRS open board meetings, and I believe you have an open board meeting. Is it the 21st or 22nd? And maybe talk a little bit about the opportunities for people to learn in person there.
I'll talk about our open board meeting, but also, I look at some of these national events, and even though somebody from the outside may go, it's just a bunch of people talking to themselves, it's the same people who attend and nothing happens, all those types of things. I'm thinking about our November CIC meeting, and there were some issues that were brought up from the open mic that specifically addressed some of these pressures that are being felt in the industry. And the fact that you had myself and others who stood up to a microphone and kind of addressed them made its way out of that room into a Financial Times publication called PNC Specialist. And you had a reporter at that particular publication who ended up speaking with a dozen to 24 different collision repair facilities about these pressures, and just released a fantastic article on it. And I think did a great job of kind of encapsulating a lot of those issues and those pressures. And I think what that takes is somebody to be able to share their perspective and their view and their real world experience at an event like that. And it's important that events like that occur so that others outside of that room can hear those stories. And it may spark the ability for somebody else to cover it and to share it, essentially push that story forward to a larger audience, a broader audience outside of just those in that room or those in our industry. So I think that, to me, I look at that and I see value in that as well. Yeah, our open board meeting is typically always the day before CIC. CIC is Wednesday in April. I think that's the 22nd. Ours is Tuesday afternoon from 2 to 5. These meetings are being held in Charlotte, North Carolina. So I encourage any shops, really any businesses who are in the collision repair space that are in that area to please join us. Our open meeting is largely going to be the association sharing some of the activities that we're working on, being able to give updates around the different programs that we've worked on developing. It's also an opportunity for us to pull in people that we've built relationships with to educate on particular areas. So we've got a great digital marketing team who's actually based out of Charlotte, North Carolina, who SCRS has spent a lot of time working with. They have a very specific history of working with dealerships and OE-centric collision repair facilities. And they're going to come in with our education committee and talk a little bit about being relevant in the modern age of search when you have answer engines and things along those lines, and how to maybe relook at how you position your digital infrastructure and your digital presence. I think that's going to be great for a lot of businesses who may not have quite considered that yet. We've got some other presentations from some of our advisors. We'll actually have the SVP and general manager from Decisely, who manages our healthcare program, with us to report a bit about that. We'll have one of our lead advisors from our 401k program on site with us as well to share a little bit about things that small businesses have done to support their team, aside from just offering the plan, like how you can structure it in a way that advantages those dollars to go back to your staff rather than maybe to taxes or things along those lines. And then we actually have a panel of the North Carolina Insurance Commissioner and 2 of his team members who work on consumer complaints coming in to talk a little bit about the types of complaints they receive and how to structure them in ways that will produce more effective outcomes for consumers. So I think that should be a really interesting presentation from the North Carolina Department of Insurance, but also opportunity for Q&A for shops who are in that marketplace to be able to talk with them, interact with them. Very similar to in January, we had the California chief and deputy chief for the Bureau of Automotive Repair there to talk about some of the recent regulations that they've been working on. I think when we can pull in those local resources, regulatory bodies, officials, it gives a very nice touch point to some of the things that are going on locally. And I think for anybody, even if you're not local, it's a great opportunity to have those types of interactions, to think about what you might bring home to your local regulators or state officials.
No, that's tremendous. And I will see you there. And that is going to be a great lineup, tremendous value. For those that can't be there in person, how can they get involved or learn more about SCRS?
Easiest place is going to be SCRS.com, and that's going to kind of bring you to all the other programs and resources that we develop. There's a lot out there for people to engage with, even if you're not a member. But what I would say is, like, I think being involved in SCRS, it's a lot like the take a penny, leave a penny jar, right? Like they're like at a cash register. I think there's something there for everybody to take, but that exists when people give back and they're a part of it and they contribute. And I think that's where our board really sets the tone and sets that leadership of they're there because they want to give back to an industry that's been really good to them. They want to leave it better than it was. And I think SCRS.com is a great place to go and find some of those different avenues where you can utilize those resources. So whether it's the news site, whether it's the videos that we've collected on our YouTube channel or are available from a consumer education standpoint for every shop to use, or from an internal education standpoint for every shop to use, those are all there. And I would encourage, if you're reading RDN, if you're attending the education, if you're using those videos, if you're interested in any of those programs, I think we try to keep membership very affordable. We try to have a lot of different options for people to choose from. We never want price to be an obstacle to be involved in your industry, and we think that there's a lot of ways to get involved. If you're already a member, and I get asked this all the time, I'm already a member, I'm not really prepared to like travel around the US and go to board meetings and like be on the board, but how can I help? I think the answer is help us carry the water, right? If you see something good, if you see a good article, you see a good video, share it with your peers, share it around your industry, share about the benefits that you get from being a part of the association, and encourage others to become a part of that community and become active. I think the more people out there that are not just there to consume, but there to consume and share with others, really speaks to the mission and the views and the ideology of the association, because we want to build this very interconnected community within the industry. And I think that's a great way to help. And I think for a lot of people that sounds so simplistic, but if everybody were to step towards that philosophy of sharing with others, I think it would advance the industry quite a bit.
I agree 100%, and that's very well said. Aaron, you're a tremendous ambassador to the industry. I'm privileged to know you. I look forward to seeing you. I appreciate your time here. Always the best wishes. Thank you so much.
I'm so grateful. Thank you so much, John.